What's up, winners and whiners group? It's me, Detroit Lenny here, joined with Scott Reichel and the College Capper live show here, where we've been capping college football playoffs the entire way for 2025 season here. And now we're at the end. We're at the championship game, the big one, as they say, the big kahuna, the national championship game presented by AT&T, Ohio State, Notre Dame. We're going to break that down in depth. You guys don't forget to like, share, subscribe, drop in the comment section what you're into, what questions you got about this game, side total, prop, or otherwise. Let's hear about it. Scott Reichel, our best bet. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm going to tell everybody to like, share, subscribe, though. But we'll get that out of the way for the semifinals. Did not cash. You want to talk about it?
I mean, yeah, we just had a couple totals and they didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it was really it was a heartbreaker. The Notre Dame one didn't get there because that game was flying under, and then they exploded in the fourth quarter.
And we were texting back and forth, and we're like, we're dead. We're dead in the water here.
You could see it coming because both teams couldn't get a stop for the final quarter, but the first 2.5 quarters or so was just an absolute rock fight. So
yeah,
I don't regret the under on the Notre Dame game because it was flying under, and then the game just exploded.
Yeah, I mean, 17 points from Notre Dame in the fourth quarter. Penn State had 14 points. I mean, we were looking good, but you just saw it halfway through the third quarter, and then we were about screwed. So it is what it is on the total. But Notre Dame has been. We talked about this prior to this show too, about how much we like Marcus Freeman here. I just, Ryan Day. I hope he stays in Ohio State forever. Because neither one of us like Ohio State, but I don't, talk to me about Marcus Freeman for a minute. How long, if he wins the national championship, we won't get into the breakdown of the actual game, but if he wins, does he leave for the NFL? Is he a candidate for the NFL?
He's a candidate. I don't think he'd go. I feel like he probably wants to spend a bit more time in college. It's one thing to win one title, but if you want to actually build a full dynasty, and you're getting compensated for it, then I feel like if he wants to stay at Notre Dame, and of course they'll take him for as long as he wants to be there, he might want to build something long term. He hasn't been there for that long. It wasn't too long ago that Brian Kelly got basically either tired of Notre Dame or they got tired of him, or vice versa, and he left to go to Louisiana. Point is, though, it just seems like Marcus Freeman's done a great job with this team. I do think that the draw was pretty favorable for Notre Dame. Then again, that's kind of what you're going to run into when you don't have any real, I'd say, elite college teams that were seeded like 1 through 4, basically, because I think all of them lost in the first round or two. But you're looking at the bracket, and Notre Dame had, once again, a pretty convincing couple of wins. Ended up beating Indiana in the first game, which was definitely lopsided. They've been good. I mean, there's really no way around it, but I do think when you're talking about the overall bracket and how it's the first time they've been using this new expanded format, they got to fix some things. Because it's not their fault.
Work in progress.
It's a work in progress, but then again, they have Georgia as the 2 seed with a backup quarterback who we don't think is any good. Right. But they beat Texas and they won the SEC, so they had to be a 2 seed. So Indiana, I think we'd agree, wasn't as good as people thought they were. Right. Georgia had no quarterback, still dominated the game, though. And Penn State was a game they kind of got outplayed in for a decent portion. Then Leonard got injured. They scored before half, and the momentum kind of changed. But I think Notre Dame's done a good job of really just adjusting mid-game on the fly, and I feel like Freeman's done a good job of keeping his team, I'd say, overall just engaged and overall just really focused on not throwing in the potential towel. It sounds basic, but I do like the fact that Notre Dame really hasn't quit. They lost to Northern Illinois, could have folded the entire season, didn't do it. I think Freeman's done a good job of really just taking control of what could have been a pretty dicey situation, either in-game or even mid-season, when Notre Dame has insane expectations, which they never reach, and then they lose to Northern Illinois. You'd assume they're screwed. But they ran the table. They've won all the games they were supposed to win. And overall, I think he's done a great job.
I agree with you. I like Marcus Freeman. Flip side of this coin is Ohio State and Ryan Day. Some would say, I mean, the Tennessee game, that was kind of a, whatever, the 8-9 seed, whatever. I mean, they should have won that game. It was no problem. The Oregon game, though, I was shocked they won. Just straight up won. I really thought Oregon was a little bit better than that. And then the Ohio State game, it is what it is. I was on Texas. I haven't been on Ohio State anywhere in this playoff matchup. And I don't know. about this matchup either against Notre Dame. But Ryan Day, there's the whole Michigan thing. And the incident with Ohio State and Michigan and the boosters and how they just can't stand Michigan and vice versa, whatever. But if he loses on Monday night, does it affect, is he on the hot seat, or does the fact that he just got there matter?
So I don't exactly have his contract information in front of me in terms of buyout stuff.
And
You got to
I'm
keep
just
that
throwing
in.
this out there. Right.
Ohio
Yeah.
State has a bunch of money anyway, so if they wanted to hypothetically buy him out, they definitely could. I mean, the roster's worth about $20 million, so they could have easily have bought him out anyway. I think he's fine. I think in reality, if they would have lost to Tennessee or Oregon, you'd have a conversation. They're in the title game. Like, I'm not going to roast them for beating Oregon and Texas. I think he's done enough to keep his job. Now, that kind of segues into the point I was going to make, which is that Ohio State, after losing to Michigan, I think has had a much tougher path than Notre Dame has. Notre Dame beat Penn State. I know we all hate James Franklin as a big game coach. We're not fans of Aller, and we were completely right. Aller was really, really bad in that game against Ohio State. Point is, though, they beat Penn State. Notre Dame ended up beating Penn State, beat Georgia with no quarterback, and beat Indiana. You compare that to what Ohio State went through. Tennessee, who might not be as good as people thought, still an SEC team, still a top 10 team for most of the season, killed Oregon, the only undefeated team in the entire country, and then beat Texas, who people thought was a top 3 team for most of the year. So I think that Ohio State has definitely beaten tougher competition, and I think we've seen, in my opinion, a better overall team play in comparison to Notre Dame. So I think Ohio State has proven more to me when it comes to how good this team can actually be. Then again, they should be, because their rosters were $20 million damn dollars. So they should be that good. The Michigan game could be fluky. It happens. They had I'd say a momentary, mental breakdown in that game where they tried to out-physical Michigan when they had no healthy corners, which I thought was pretty stupid. But the point is, Ohio State seems to have fixed whatever issues they had, and it seems like this team is worthy of being a favorite in the title game. But would we agree, whether you like Notre Dame or not, or whether you like Ohio State or not, Ohio State, I think, has been more impressive in the playoff, and I don't think it's very close.
I would agree with that. I guess a better question is I mean, there's Ohio State fans out there that can't stand Ryan Day. Yeah. And he took them to the national championship game, regardless of what happens on Monday, the outcome. But if he loses, that just fuels that fire on the hate.
Well, twice, right? Because they lost to Alabama a couple years ago in the title
game,
right?
And so the thing will be is he can't do it. But if he wins, did the fans forgive him? The boosters,
they should.
You're right. They'll just pay him and do whatever. But should they forgive him? Do they?
I would.
They are bitter about that Michigan rivalry.
Honestly, I don't even care. Maybe it's just my priorities when it comes to actually rooting for a team. I could care less about a rivalry game if you win the title. The title's the entire goal of the season start.
That's why you play.
So if you are more concerned about winning the rivalry game than winning a title, then why do you watch every week besides the one rivalry week? You just basically said the season doesn't matter. Like, what's the point of going through all of the overall, practices and all the recruiting and stuff and all that things if it all comes down to 1 week? They lost an embarrassing game. It happens. They made the playoff in the first year where they expanded. You could argue that Ohio State wouldn't have gotten in if they didn't expand it, which I think we'd agree on because they were the 8th seed.
Absolutely.
So on one hand, you could argue that it's good and bad in the grand scheme of things for the sport, because if you wanted an expanded playoff and you wanted more teams to get in, you will have a team that only got in via expansion win the title because you have an 8 seed against a 7 seed.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that or no?
I'm happy. Actually, I am okay with that because the playoffs have been a good and bad thing, like you just mentioned. Like, I mean, there's some things we could take out of this year that I think we learned that we can fix.
They have to fix the seeding. That's the main thing they got to fix. But...
Absolutely. But like, I love the fact that someone like Arizona State is in this or was in this.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love that aspect of it, but the seeding is horrible. And I think they realize that. I mean, that's just okay, we'll own that. They should just own that next year and just say,
fine. They'll fix the seeding and they'll go from there.
We messed that up.
Do I like the premise of having a bigger field? Sure. You can say that it makes the regular season less important. To be honest, I don't really care. I feel like the counterpoint is if you want more meaningful college football games in the postseason action, why would I turn down extra games that have extra meaning? Because we've seen in all the bowl games we covered, a bunch of people opt out. If you extend the field, you
Right.
increase the actual, you should at least increase the competitiveness of these
Theoretically,
games.
yes.
Now, the first round was atrocious. That happens, whatever. Happened in the NFL playoffs, too. But the point is, the argument is, if you're worried about bowl games not being competitive and you're able to basically force more games to have value, why would I turn that down as a college football fan? I like the expanded playoff.
I do as well. I'm
Oregon
a fan.
got screwed because of seeding and everything that happened there, but in reality, I still like the idea behind the entire expanded field.
I agree. Crazy. They both feel like teams of destiny. I don't feel that way about Ohio State. I feel like they paid for their way. Like they bought the first class ticket, so I'm not going to feel good for them to, I mean, their roster is so pricey.
The thing is, Ohio State, I feel like most people had like an underdog complex with them after they lost to Michigan, and I just felt like you have the most expensive roster in the country. So I don't feel like I'm expecting you to lose at any point. At least me. I was betting on Ohio State for the last couple games. I live them against Oregon pretty quickly on, and I ended up betting them against Texas, and I won. But I feel like Ohio State, they were an 8 seed, but they were easily a top 2 talent team in the country.
Fair.
So I don't really think that they were in a Cinderella position. Notre Dame, you could argue, was. I think Notre Dame's a bigger Cinderella than Ohio State was. Then again, Notre Dame's path was a lot easier than Ohio State's based on opponent. So it kind of balances out.
But to be fair, like their path, they did dominate along the way. But, I guess I see it more Cinderella story towards Notre Dame. Seeding should be arranged. Yeah, smaller teams got the most love ever because 12 teams are possible. Yeah, 100%. It was good to see it. Got to Boise. Yeah, I mentioned Arizona State, but yeah, Boise. Let's talk about this this game. Here's what I got for spread wise. As of this morning, I got 8.5 as far as the spread. Ohio State minus the 8.5. Total, I see at 46.5 to 45.5. Shop your lines, folks. I mean, depending on which way you want to go, you can get 45.5. So, breaking this down, knowing what you just said and everything like that, we're on different sides we're on different sides. But I think we both agree on the total here. You want to go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so I like Ohio State in this game. I know you like Notre Dame. I'm sure you think that Notre Dame's proven that they are definitely resilient and they are definitely capable of coming back from behind. They're not going to quit. If they fall behind early, they're not going to roll over. However, I think Ohio State's beaten very good teams on the way here, and I think that some of those teams were better than Notre Dame. I'll ask you this. If Texas played Notre Dame, who would you take?
Notre Dame.
Really? You take Notre Dame over Texas?
Yeah, but I wouldn't take them over Oregon.
Okay. So the point is,
I get your point, and I agree with it. But in the Texas matchup, just because I'm not a Ewers fan, I'm not, and I don't think he gets it done. And I do think, to your point, you're going to get 60 minutes of football from Notre Dame.
Yeah, that is
it's
fair enough what you're saying. The point that I'll make, though, is that since we agree that Oregon would be favored against Notre Dame, the point I'm going to make is that Ohio State, in my opinion, has faced better teams than Notre Dame in the playoffs so far. I think Texas would be favored over Notre Dame. I think they'd be favored by 5, maybe 5.5, give or take, if I had to guess a spread there. But the point is, you can argue that Texas and Oregon are better than Notre Dame, and Ohio State dismantled both teams. Now, the Texas score was closer because you had the fumble, strip sack, touchdown at the end.
It was a weird game.
They were 1 yard away from tying the game. So, that game was not as big of a blowout as the final score indicated. But the point is, Ohio State has beaten every team here by double digits. They've beaten very solid competition. Notre Dame, I think, has gotten a pretty easy draw, in my opinion. I think that Notre Dame is a team that was pretty fortunate to get Indiana, followed by Georgia with no quarterback. And we were low on Georgia anyway, even with Beck being there. But Stockton, I don't think is any good. I think we'd agree on that. And they ended up beating Penn State in a game that they were kind of getting drastically outplayed in for almost the entire first half, and then Notre Dame made it interesting because James Franklin turned into James Franklin again. But the point is, Notre Dame's been getting by, I think, on what has been a relatively easier schedule to a title game appearance than most people might anticipate. Ohio State, I think, has beaten some really good teams, or at least some teams that are viewed as being really good. I think Ohio State wins this game comfortably. I think that Ohio State is the better team on both sides of the ball. I think that Riley Leonard is fine. I think Howard might be a better quarterback. Ohio State has better weapons. I think the defense is better. The coaching, you could argue, is in favor of Notre Dame. The point is, though, I think Ohio State is the better team. On paper, I don't think it's close. I think Ohio State, roster-wise on paper, is the significantly deeper roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's $20 million roster against whatever. I don't have the numbers, but that's all you hear in the media is Ohio State is the most, highest priced.
Once again, I don't
roster,
view
blah,
them
blah,
as an underdog or Cinderella as the 8th seed because they spent that much money being an 8th seed. That's kind of embarrassing on their own part. But Ohio State, I think, is the much better team. I'm not going to say that it's Georgia TCU bad because that's one of the worst title games of all time, and they won that game by like 60. Give me Ohio State by 14. Do I think Leonard can beat this team with his arm? I don't think so because he was not very good with his arm against Penn State. He had a couple of big drives in the fourth quarter. He can use his legs. I'm not a fan of him in the pocket. I think he's not a great passer. I think Will Howard can do a good job of finding openings against this defense. Smith didn't do anything against Texas, and they still won the game. Right. The issue, though, that you have with Ohio State is 1, penalties that killed them against Texas. They got through it anyway. 2 is if you like the offensive line or not. And I think they did a pretty decent job against Texas for most of the way through. And Texas defensive line, I think, is better than Notre Dame's. So I'll go with Ohio State. I think 8.5 is a bit short. I think they win this by double digits. There's a chance in Notre Dame backdoors, but I do think Ohio State will win this by, in my opinion, 14 to 21 points.
See, I'm not saying Ohio State doesn't win. I just think it's too many points, actually. I think Notre Dame keeps it gritty. They keep it low scoring. We both like the under. And I think that plays to Notre Dame's point. I think they can just ground and pound. They can limit Ohio State. I don't think Leonard needs to do a lot. I don't think they need to put the ball in his hands. I don't think he needs to air it out like that. Ohio State definitely is the more talented team, but the coaching advantage goes to Notre Dame. So I'm going to take the points. But I'm not calling for a Notre Dame outright upset or anything like that. But I do think this game is ugly. 24. I don't even know if we get to 24. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 17-13 type game.
I personally, I would be surprised. The reason why I like the under is I think that Ohio State can move the ball against this team, but I still have some questions about the offensive line. Notre Dame might have serious problems moving the ball in this game. I think that Notre Dame could potentially, I don't want to say single-handedly drag the total down, but they tend to drain clock. I still question Leonard. I do think you're looking at a spot where Ohio State's defense really can put Notre Dame in a box. I can see that happening. The one thing I am going to point out, by the way, we really haven't had many close title games for a while.
Right.
Just to throw it out there, by the way, you want to guess the last title game that was decided by single digits?
Oh. 2017?
That is correct. I don't know how the hell you pulled that out of your ass, but that is 100%
Look
correct.
at that. How about that?
That was the Tua overtime game.
That was the
Tua overtime game against
less
Georgia.
than, you know where it was for me? 10 years.
Okay.
Over under.
So point is that Alabama won that game against Georgia. They came back. Tua came in. Clemson beat Alabama by 28. LSU beat Clemson by 17. Alabama beat Ohio State by 28. Georgia beat Alabama by 15. Georgia beat TCU by 58. And then Michigan beat Washington by 21. So you tend to see an ass kicking in these games. Yep. It's been a long time since we've had a close game. That's why I'm kind of going against your close prediction here. We just don't get that. I feel like Ohio State's the better team, and based on what I've seen over the last couple of years in these games, the better team tends to kick the other team's ass. So I think Ohio State wins by double digits. That's kind of where I'm at.
That's fair. 49% of the bets are, this is according to Action Network, 49% of the bets are on Notre Dame, 59% of the money, spread-wise at 8.5. To be fair, I do have Notre Dame at 9.5. I got that early. I also have Notre Dame in a teaser to put it over 14 and under 52. So that's, anybody that knows me knows I love a good two-team teaser. So, I'm going to go with Notre Dame in a teaser for sure And
I mean, to be honest, if I
go
was going to do
under.
a teaser in college football, which I'm not, I would just take Ohio State down to 2.5. But
That's
that's where
fair.
I'm at. I think Ohio State should win this game. It would not, of course, be as bad as losing to that Michigan team that couldn't complete a forward pass. But this is
Yeah,
a game Ohio State really should win. Like the
that's fair.
loss they had against Bama, I can get by because Alabama's team was stacked. Like Devontae Smith won the Heisman, Mac Jones was very good in college. Like they had a loaded team. I'm not going to roast them too hard for that. This is
That's
a
fair.
game that Ohio State should definitely win. Like this team is significantly more talented than Notre Dame. Yes, Freeman's done a great job with this team. Then again, Notre Dame still lost to Northern Illinois. Like they
Yeah.
still lost to that team. I can't really fully overlook that, but I think Ohio State is more likely to blow this team out than Notre Dame is to win the game. That's kind of where I'm at. I think that Ohio State wins by double digits. That's kind of how I see it.
Maybe I just don't see how they're that much more talented than Notre Dame, because I'll tell you what, the coaching advantage for me is night and day for Notre Dame.
Well, I do want to ask.
You know what I mean?
We're talking
And I
about
think
talent, though.
like Ryan Days is going to fuck this up.
I do want to ask you, though. I feel like that's how Ohio State would lose. It'd be Ryan Day having a massive meltdown, which is possible. But I do want to ask you, because based on talent, you think it might not be as big of a margin as I think it is.
Right.
You have
position-wise, hold on. Let me just say, Ohio State position-wise, way better than Notre Dame. Defensively, I think Notre Dame is comparable.
I don't know if they are, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, Notre Dame gave up 35 to USC. They gave up 24 last game to Penn State. Ohio State has given up a total of 52 points to Texas, Oregon, and Tennessee. That's like 3 separate top 15 offenses in the country, and they've given up 52 points combined. I think Ohio State's defense is better than Notre Dame's by a decent margin, in my opinion. I think Notre Dame's defense is good. I think Ohio State's defense is elite. I think Ohio State might have the best defense in the entire country. That's kind of the difference that I have here.
We'll find out Monday for sure.
But I'm going Ohio State to cover. I like the under, even if Ohio State
like
does.
The under.
We like the defenses in this game. I'm not saying Notre Dame's defense is bad. I'm saying Ohio State's defense is better. I think that Notre Dame, if they finish this game with like 10 points or 17 points, I would not be shocked at all. I think that Ohio State will have Notre Dame in a box for most of the matchup. That's kind of where I'm at. I see if you're Notre Dame, what's the biggest worry about from an offensive perspective? I mean, I'll break it down Notre Dame's issues in general. One, for defense, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Smith is the best receiver in the entire country. Like, you got to deal with shutting him down, which is asking a lot. Penn State's receivers in that last game had a combined 0 catches.
Yeah.
0. Like, Penn State has no receivers at all besides Warren, who's their tight end. Smith is a separate animal. Like, Smith is an insane receiver, and Ohio State beat Texas with him only having 1 catch for 3 yards. Like, I do think that Smith is a game breaker who could single-handedly win Ohio State a game with a couple of big plays. As for Notre Dame, their issue offensively, I think it's Riley Leonard. I think the concern is the decision-making, because he had a couple of really bad passes 100%. In that first half against Penn State, and that's my concern. I think Ohio State is more talented on both sides of the ball. I think it'll look that way when they play on Monday. I think Ohio State wins. I think they're better.
Yeah, I don't disagree that they win the game. I don't know if they cover, and I think Notre Dame's biggest worry is Leonard, because you don't want him to have the ball. You don't want him. He's not going to march down the field and win you a game.
I'm going to ask you, though, who do you think's better, Leonard or Howard? Or is it a tie? It could be a tie.
That's mid as mid gets on both levels.
The point
is, what I mean? I don't want to say they're good quarterbacks. They're probably.
I think they're good college quarterbacks. I think they have no pro.
I don't think they're either one transitions to the NFL.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Or I think they might be a clipboard holder for a bit, but a preseason, spot, whatever. The point is, if the quarterbacks are basically tied, and you think Ohio State's more talented in most other positions, I can't take Notre Dame. The only time I'd ever be able to make up for other positions is if you have a massive advantage at quarterback. Notre Dame doesn't have that in this game. So give them the better roster.
Fair enough. I think our favorite bet here is just the under, because I think
there will be nerves involved early too, conservative play calling, basic stuff, but Notre Dame does drain clock.
I'm looking at the first half, looking at first half unders and stuff. Current number on the first
I like the first half under in general.
22.5.
I feel like that is pretty low, but it wouldn't shock me if Notre Dame had 7 in the first half.
It wouldn't shock me if this is like a 7-3 first half.
That too.
Honest to God, I'm not afraid of you can find 23, you can find 23 and a half if you want to pay the juice on it. But I'm not afraid of the 22 and a half at plus 102 on DraftKings right now.
I think that Ohio State's going to be leading at half. I think they'll win the game. I don't mind the under, though. Notre Dame, I actually think is going to struggle offensively. I think Notre Dame might finish with like 13. If you wanted a score prediction for me, I'll go Ohio State. I don't know if they're going to kick many field goals, to be honest, because their kicker's not very good.
Right.
I'll go Ohio State like 27 or 28-13. That's kind of where I'm at.
Notre Dame team total.
28-14, 28-13. Ohio State wins comfortably. That's where I'm at.
The under's juice to the total for 17 and a half, 18 and a half, depending on FanDuel or DraftKings for Notre Dame.
I mean, I don't think Notre Dame gets to 20.
27 and a half.
I don't know how I'm supposed to pick Notre Dame to get to 20 when Oregon in garbage time got to 21 and Tennessee got to 17. Like most offenses that were better than Notre Dame in the regular season really just got clamped by this defense for the majority of these games. I think Notre Dame's going to have a hard time getting to 20. So I like the Notre Dame team total under personally.
I don't hate that. I don't hate the Ohio State team total under. I'm all over this under.
Notre Dame State team total under because as what Sonny said, the thing about Notre Dame was the defense amazing or did Drew Allar just collapse on national television? Because Allar couldn't complete a pass. I mean, Allar was horrible. So that's kind of tricky because when your quarterback's that bad, yes, defense should get some credit. I mean, Allar couldn't complete a damn screen pass. Like, it was ugly.
I don't hate this total. That's actually more than I think it would be. Honestly, that's not horrible, though. I do think it's a little closer, though, but I'm on the same page here. The NCAA's accountant chimed in 500 more Notre Dame spent on Ohio State.
I mean, to be fair, Ohio State Notre Dame gets to keep all the money they made for making the title game because they're an independent.
Yeah.
So they don't have to share any money. That's pretty fun.
Catholics have tons of money to lose. Absolutely. So I think our favorite bet then, I guess, is the under. And we'll see on the side.
We'll see
on the side. I like it. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Don't forget, guys, like, share, subscribe, drop in the comment section what you're into, side total, proper, otherwise. We'll see you guys on the next one. Good luck, unless you're against us. Take care, folks.